What if the one thing you've been doing every single day to stay healthy is actually working against you? Picture this. You wake up in the morning, walk to your kitchen, grab a fresh apple from the bowl on your counter, take a big, satisfying bite, and feel genuinely good about yourself. You're being healthy. You're making smart choices. You're doing what you've been told your whole life. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. But what if that simple, innocent habit, something you've never questioned for even a moment, is quietly doing damage you can't see? That thought might feel unsettling, even a little ridiculous, but stay with me, because what the research is now revealing will genuinely change the way you look at this fruit forever. The apple isn't the villain in this story. The mistakes most people make when eating it are, and they're so common, so ordinary, that 9 out of 10 people make them every single week without ever suspecting a thing. Here's what makes this so important, especially if you're over 60. Your body in your 60s, 70s, and beyond is not the same body you had at 35. Your gut lining has become more sensitive. Your liver and kidneys process things more slowly. Your immune system responds differently to compounds it once handled with ease. Your metabolism has shifted in ways that change how even natural sugars and fibers affect your blood sugar, your energy, and your digestion. So something that was perfectly harmless for you 2 decades ago might now be creating problems you're blaming on aging, on stress, or on something else entirely. That fatigue you feel after lunch, that bloating that won't go away, those energy crashes in the afternoon, some of it might trace back, at least in part, to how you're handling one of the most common fruits on Earth. And once you understand what's happening and why, fixing it is actually quite simple. That's what today is all about. We're going to walk through 9 specific mistakes that people make when eating apples, and for each one, we're going to dig into the real science behind why it matters, what it does to your body, and exactly how to do things differently so you get every ounce of benefit this remarkable fruit has to offer. Some of these mistakes will surprise you, a couple of them might genuinely shock you, and at least one of them I'd be willing to bet is something you do without even thinking about it. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something. How often do you eat apples, and which variety is your go-to? Are you a red apple person, a Fuji fan, someone who loves the tartness of a Granny Smith, or maybe you're a Honeycrisp devotee? Leave your answer in the comments below, because your answer might actually reveal which of these 9 mistakes you're most likely making. Now let's get into it, starting with a mistake that almost everyone makes and almost no one talks about. Let's start with pesticides, because this is something that sounds like it should be common knowledge by now, but the reality is far more alarming than most people realize. You rinse your apple under the tap for a few seconds, maybe give it a quick rub on your shirt, and you consider it clean. That ritual feels thorough enough. It looks clean, it feels clean. The problem is, it isn't. Conventionally grown apples, meaning the ones you find in most grocery stores that aren't labeled organic, are among the most heavily pesticide-contaminated fruits in the entire produce section. The Environmental Working Group, which tracks pesticide contamination in foods sold across the United States, has consistently ranked apples in the top 5 most contaminated fruits year after year. These aren't traces that water washes away. Many of the chemicals used in apple farming are specifically engineered to resist rain and moisture, so they stay on the fruit longer and keep insects away throughout the growing season. That same quality that makes them effective in the field makes them incredibly difficult to remove in your kitchen sink. Now here's where this gets particularly important for older adults. When you're in your 30s, your liver and kidneys are running at peak capacity. They're built to handle detoxification efficiently, processing and clearing chemicals before they can build up in your system. But as you move into your 60s and beyond, those detox systems naturally slow down. Your liver's ability to neutralize foreign compounds decreases. Your kidneys filter more slowly. That means pesticide residues that your body might have handled without any obvious symptoms 20 years ago can now quietly accumulate and begin creating problems. We're talking about fatigue that doesn't respond to sleep, low-grade inflammation that flares in your joints, hormonal disruption, digestive sensitivity, and even, according to some long-term studies, an association with cognitive decline. None of these things announce themselves as pesticide-related. They just feel like getting older. And that's exactly what makes this mistake so easy to overlook for so long. Consider Helen, a 74-year-old from Vermont who loved apples so deeply she ate 2 or 3 every single day. She kept them in a bowl on her counter, gave them a quick rinse, and never thought twice. Over time, she developed persistent digestive discomfort and recurring skin rashes that she and everyone around her simply accepted as part of aging. It wasn't until a nutritionist suggested she switch to organic apples and start washing them with baking soda solution that things began to shift. Within weeks, the rashes faded, the digestive discomfort eased. The connection she never expected to find was right there in front of her the whole time. The fix is not complicated. When you bring apples home, fill a large bowl with clean water and add 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Let the apples soak for 15 to 20 minutes, then rinse them thoroughly and dry them. Studies have shown that baking soda is significantly more effective at removing pesticide residues than plain water alone. If you prefer, you can use a mixture of 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water for a similar soaking method. And if you want to take it a step further, use a soft fruit brush to gently scrub the skin. These aren't complicated steps. They take a few extra minutes, and they make an enormous difference.
Now let's talk about something that goes against everything we instinctively believe about healthy eating, and that's the idea that you can eat too many apples. This one is genuinely counterintuitive, because if apples are healthy, more should be better, right? That's how most of us think. But your digestive system doesn't work on that logic, and after 60, it becomes even more important to understand why. Each medium-sized apple contains 4 to 5 grams of fiber, mostly in the form of a substance called pectin. Pectin is wonderful for your gut. It feeds beneficial bacteria, helps regulate cholesterol, and supports healthy bowel movements. But here's the thing about fiber. Your gut can only process so much at a time before it starts to struggle. When you eat 2, 3, or 4 apples in a day, you're piling a significant amount of fiber into a digestive system that, after 60, moves more slowly and handles fermentation less efficiently than it once did. The result is gas, bloating, that uncomfortable pressure in your abdomen, and the strange sensation of feeling full but restless at the same time. The sugar question is equally important. A single medium apple contains roughly 19 grams of natural sugar, most of it in the form of fructose. Fructose is natural, yes, but natural doesn't mean unlimited. Unlike glucose, fructose is processed almost entirely by your liver. When you eat several apples in a short window, your liver is suddenly dealing with a significant fructose load, and over time, when this happens regularly, it can contribute to elevated triglycerides, increased water retention, and the kind of energy swings that leave you feeling drained in the afternoon without any clear reason. These are already common concerns for many adults over 60, and unknowingly amplifying them through excessive apple consumption is the last thing anyone wants to do when they're genuinely trying to be healthy. Frank, a 69-year-old from Minnesota, had made the switch from pastries to apples for his afternoon snack, eating 3 every day and feeling proud of his progress. But instead of feeling better, he found himself dealing with persistent bloating and unpredictable energy crashes. A dietitian helped him understand what was happening. He cut back to 1 apple a day, paired it with a handful of walnuts, and within a week, his digestion calmed down and his energy became steady and reliable again. 1 apple a day, eaten smartly, is genuinely the sweet spot. Here's a mistake that may genuinely catch you off guard because it involves something most people never think about at all, and that's the seeds. Apple seeds look harmless. They're tiny, they're natural, they come from a fruit we consider perfectly safe. But those small brown seeds contain a compound called amygdalin. And when amygdalin is chewed or crushed and digested, it releases hydrogen cyanide inside your body. Cyanide. Most people's first reaction to that word in the context of apples is disbelief, followed quickly by the natural follow-up question, why aren't people dropping dead from eating apples? And the answer is dose. Swallowing a seed or 2 by accident is not a medical emergency. Your body has the capacity to neutralize very small amounts of this compound without any symptoms. The danger emerges when people intentionally consume apple seeds in quantity, often because they've come across claims online that the seeds contain powerful anti-cancer compounds or concentrated antioxidants.
These claims have spread widely in health and wellness communities, and while the seed does contain some bioactive substances, the presence of amygdalin makes regular, intentional consumption something your body simply cannot safely absorb. According to research published in the journal Food and Chemical Toxicology, somewhere between 100 and 200 crushed or chewed apple seeds could be a lethal dose for an average adult. Nobody eats that many deliberately, but even smaller, consistent doses, the kind you'd accumulate by blending whole apples, seeds and all, into your daily smoothie, can quietly stress your liver and kidneys over time, producing symptoms that are vague and easy to misattribute. Nancy, a 72-year-old from Oregon, had read about the supposed benefits of apple seeds and started blending whole apples into her morning smoothie every single day for weeks. She began experiencing a metallic taste in her mouth, persistent fatigue, and a general feeling of malaise. When she went to her doctor, her liver enzymes were elevated. The culprit? The seeds in her smoothie. Once she started coring her apples before blending, her numbers returned to normal and her energy came back steady and reliable again. 1 apple a day, eaten smartly, is genuinely the sweet spot. Here's a mistake that beyonds the apple itself and into the way we eat it, because this mistake is one of the most widespread habits in the world of healthy snacking, and it's quietly undermining the very benefits people are reaching for. Eating an apple on its own, by itself as a standalone snack, especially on an empty stomach, sounds like a perfectly clean, healthy choice, and in some ways it is. But here's what's actually happening inside your body when you do that. That apple's natural sugars, fructose primarily, enter your bloodstream relatively quickly. Yes, the fiber in the apple slows things down a little, but without protein or healthy fat to buffer the absorption process, your blood sugar still rises faster than it would otherwise. And then, when it comes back down, it often drops in a way that leaves you feeling more hungry, more tired, and more drawn to sweets than you were before you ate the apple in the first place. This is especially true for older adults because insulin sensitivity tends to decrease with age, making blood sugar regulation a more delicate and important concern. The solution is so simple it almost feels too easy, and that's pairing. When you eat your apple alongside something that contains protein or healthy fat, you fundamentally change the metabolic experience of that snack. The fat and proteins slow digestion. They create a sustained, gradual release of energy that keeps your blood sugar stable and keeps you feeling genuinely satisfied for hours instead of minutes. Sliced apple with natural almond butter or peanut butter is one of the most effective and genuinely delicious pairings you can choose. Apple slices with Greek yogurt or cottage cheese give you calcium and protein alongside the fiber and antioxidants of the fruit. A handful of walnuts alongside your apple brings heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids into the picture. These combinations don't just prevent the blood sugar crash, they actually enhance the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins from the rest of your meal, allowing your body to make better use of vitamins A, E, and K from the foods around it. Think of your apple not as a standalone snack, but as the anchor of a small, balanced team. It performs best when it has support, and the good news is that support is easy, delicious, and virtually available in every kitchen. Here is one of the most common and costly mistakes of all, and it's one that seems logical, even thoughtful on the surface. It's the habit of peeling your apple before you eat it. You might peel it because the skin feels tough. Maybe you don't love the texture. Maybe you peel it out of habit, the way your mother or grandmother did before you. Or maybe you peel it because you're worried about pesticides and you figure removing the skin removes the problem. Whatever the reason, the result is the same, and it's a significant loss of nutrition that happens quietly every single time. The apple peel is not just an outer covering, it is literally where the majority of the apple's nutritional power is stored. Nearly half of the apple's total fiber content lives in that thin outer layer. The bulk of its oxidants, its vitamins, and its mineral content are concentrated in the peel far more densely than in the flesh beneath it. When you peel the apple, you're not just removing a covering, you're removing the most potent part of the fruit you just bought and brought home. What does the science actually say about this? Research published in the journal Food Chemistry found that apple peels contain up to 6 times more polyphenols than the flesh of the apple. Polyphenols are natural antioxidant compounds that reduce inflammation, protect your arterial walls, and play a documented role in guarding against cellular DNA damage. Two of the most important polyphenols in the peel are quercetin and camphorol, both of which have been studied extensively for their role in reducing inflammatory markers in the body. The peel is also where a significant portion of the apple's pectin is located. That's soluble fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria, helps pull LDL cholesterol out of your bloodstream, and plays a direct role in regulating post-meal blood sugar spikes. Researchers at Cornell University found that the antioxidants concentrated in apple peels were able to inhibit the growth of cancer cells in laboratory studies involving colon, liver, and breast tissue. That's not a trivial finding, and it underscores just how much nutritional value is sitting in that part of the fruit most people casually throw away. Linda, 71 years old and from Vermont, had been peeling her apples for years before slicing them into her morning oatmeal. She'd started the habit because of sensitive teeth and never questioned it. Over time, her digestion slowed, constipation became a recurring issue, and her energy in the mornings felt flat. When she learned about what she was removing every time she peeled her apple, she started blending whole apples, skin included, into smoothies instead of slicing and peeling them. Within a month, her digestion had improved noticeably, and her morning energy lasted significantly longer into the day. Of course, the peel is only a health asset if it's clean, and that brings us back to the importance of washing properly. If you're eating the peel, you absolutely need to soak your apples in a baking soda or vinegar water solution for 10 to 15 minutes before eating them, or choose organic varieties which carry far fewer pesticide residues. If the texture of the peel is a genuine barrier for you, try slicing the apple very thin or lightly baking or stewing it. The skin softens considerably with gentle heat while retaining most of its nutritional value. The peel isn't incidental to the apple's benefits. It is the heart of them. Let's shift now to something that happens in almost every kitchen and almost never gets questioned: where you store your apples. Walk into most homes and you'll find apples sitting in a bowl on the counter or the kitchen table. They look beautiful there. They're colorful and inviting, and there's something genuinely appealing about a bowl of fresh fruit in the middle of a room. But here's the problem that's happening invisibly while those apples sit out looking perfectly fine. Apples are living organisms. Even after they're picked, they continue to breathe. They produce a natural gas called ethylene as part of their ongoing biological process, and ethylene is essentially a ripening accelerant. It speeds up the aging of the apple itself, and it speeds up the ripening and decay of every other fruit sitting nearby. That's why your bananas turn brown faster when they sit next to apples. That's why your avocados seem to go from perfectly firm to overripe in what feels like hours when they're near the fruit bowl. As apples over-ripen at room temperature, their nutritional profile changes in ways that directly undermine their health benefits. A study published in 2023 in the Journal of Food Quality found that apples stored at room temperature for just 5 days lost up to 45% of their vitamin C content. Their soluble fiber structure began to break down. Their natural sugar concentration increased as the pectin degraded, meaning the apple that once had a gentler effect on your blood sugar now causes a sharper spike. And beyond the nutrient loss, warm and humid kitchen environments create ideal conditions for mold spores and bacteria to begin colonizing the apple's surface, particularly if the apples are stored in plastic bags that trap moisture. You might not see anything, you might not smell anything, but over time, eating apples that have been sitting out at room temperature for days can contribute to low-grade digestive distress that is easy to chalk up to other causes. The refrigerator is where your apples belong. In a cool, dry drawer set between 32 and 39 degrees Fahrenheit, apples can stay fresh, crisp, and nutritionally intact for 3 to 4 weeks longer than they would on your counter. Keep them away from bananas, pears, and avocados. Wrap them loosely in paper towels or a mesh bag rather than sealing them in plastic. Check them weekly because one bruised apple releases extra ethylene and can accelerate the aging of the ones around it. It's a small logistical shift with a genuinely significant impact on how much nutrition you're actually getting from the fruit you buy.
Now let's address a mistake that many people make with the best possible intentions, and that's the habit of salvaging a moldy or spoiled apple by cutting away the bad part and eating the rest. This seems entirely reasonable on the surface. The mold is in one spot, you cut around it generously, what's left looks perfectly fine. The problem is that mold doesn't respect the visible boundaries you see on the surface of the fruit. It spreads invisibly through the flesh of the apple, sending microscopic filaments deep beneath the skin. And as mold grows inside fruit, it produces what are called mycotoxins, toxic compounds that cannot be removed by cutting, washing, or cooking. They're already in the flesh. A 2022 study from the Food Safety Journal found that nearly 30% of moldy food samples still contained active mycotoxins even after all visible mold had been removed. That's not a small margin. That means nearly 1 in 3 apples you've tried to rescue may still carry compounds that are harmful to your body, even after you've done everything that seems logical to clean them up. These mycotoxins, and particularly a class called aflatoxins, are processed by the liver. In a young body with a high-functioning detox system, small exposures might pass through without obvious consequence, but after 60, when your liver's capacity is naturally reduced, these compounds can accumulate more readily and create more significant stress on your system. The symptoms, nausea, fatigue, low-grade inflammation, digestive discomfort, are easy to attribute to other things, which is exactly why this connection so rarely gets made. Patricia, 74 years old and from Oregon, made baked apples every week as her signature healthy dessert. She routinely cut away small bruised spots from older apples before baking them, thinking she was being sensible and reducing food waste. Over months, she developed unexplained nausea, persistent fatigue, and low energy that confused her. Her doctor eventually identified mild liver inflammation. When the dietary history came out, the connection became clear. Once she started using only fresh, properly stored apples and stopped trying to rescue ones that had already begun to turn, her symptoms resolved. The rule here is simple and worth taking seriously. If an apple has visible mold, any soft or sunken spots with discoloration, a musty or fermented smell, or a texture that's become mealy and unpleasant, it goes in the bin. Not salvaged, not cut around, and not baked to try to save it. Fresh only. Your liver will thank you for it. Now let's address a mistake that many people make with the best possible intentions, and that's the habit of salvaging a moldy or spoiled apple by cutting away the bad part and eating the rest. This seems entirely reasonable on the surface. The mold is in one spot, you cut around it generously, what's left looks perfectly fine. The problem is that mold doesn't respect the visible boundaries you see on the surface of the fruit. It spreads invisibly through the flesh of the apple, sending microscopic filaments deep beneath the skin. And as mold grows inside fruit, it produces what are called mycotoxins, toxic compounds that cannot be removed by cutting, washing, or cooking. They're already in the flesh. A 2022 study from the Food Safety Journal found that nearly 30% of moldy fruit samples still contained active mycotoxins, even after all visible mold had been removed. That's not a small margin. That means nearly 1 in 3 apples you've tried to rescue may still carry compounds that are harmful to your body, even after you've done everything that seems logical to clean them up. These mycotoxins, and particularly a class called aflatoxins, are processed by the liver. In a young body with a high-functioning detox system, small exposures might pass through without obvious consequence, but after 60, when your liver's capacity is naturally reduced, these compounds can accumulate more readily and create more significant stress on your system. The symptoms, nausea, fatigue, low-grade inflammation, digestive discomfort, are easy to attribute to other things, which is exactly why this connection so rarely gets made. Patricia, 74 years old and from Oregon, made baked apples every week as her signature healthy dessert. She routinely cut away small bruised spots from older apples before baking them, thinking she was being sensible and reducing food waste. Over months, she developed unexplained nausea, persistent fatigue, and low energy that confused her. Her doctor eventually identified mild liver inflammation. When the dietary history came out, the connection became clear. Once she started using only fresh, properly stored apples and stopped trying to rescue ones that had already begun to turn, her symptoms resolved. The rule here is simple and worth taking seriously.
If an apple has visible mold, any soft or sunken spots with discoloration, a musty or fermented smell, or a texture that's become mealy and unpleasant, it goes in the bin. Not salvaged, not cut around, and not baked to try to save it. Fresh only. Your liver will thank you for it. Now let's address a mistake that is more subtle than the ones we've covered so far, but in some ways it has one of the biggest long-term impacts on the range of benefits you get from eating apples regularly. That mistake is eating only one variety. Most of us have a favorite. Maybe it's the sweet crunch of a Fuji, the familiar comfort of a Red Delicious, the sharp tartness of a Granny Smith, or the perfectly balanced sweetness of a Honeycrisp. And there's nothing wrong with having a preference. The problem is that when you eat the same apple every single day, you're giving your body the same narrow set of nutrients, antioxidants, and polyphenols over and over again, while missing out on entirely different sets of compounds that other varieties provide. Apples are not nutritionally interchangeable. Each variety carries what researchers describe as a unique phytonutrient fingerprint, meaning a distinct combination of naturally occurring plant compounds that have specific effects on your cardiovascular system, your immune function, your gut microbiome, and your brain. Red apples like Fuji, Gala, and Honeycrisp are particularly rich in anthocyanins, the same pigments that give red and purple fruits their deep color and that have been extensively studied for their ability to protect blood vessels, reduce arterial inflammation, and support heart health. Green apples like Granny Smith are notably high in malic acid, an organic compound that supports liver detoxification, aids in digestion, and has a gentler effect on your blood sugar than many other apple varieties. Yellow and pink-toned apples like Golden Delicious and Pink Lady are rich in flavonoids and carotenoids that have been linked to improved visual health and stronger immune defense. A 2023 study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry compared 12 different apple varieties